For those of you who have asked me how I filter the stocks before I choose something to trade, I'm going to be giving you the answer as basically two pieces of software. The first is Simply Wall Street, which is simplywall.st. And the second I've introduced many times. It's barchart.com. And the main reason is it's the best place to find gaps. Now that's the technical stuff. You go to barchart.com, you got your gaps up, you got your gaps down. But for non-gap trades, I want to look at the fundamentals. I want to see the background before I do any sort of technical analysis. Now, I usually do this back here in R in the back end, but most traders don't have access or they don't have the ability to do any sort of coding themselves, and they're just comparing metrics instead, which is fine. And by the way, I don't use R. This is called R Studio. I don't use R to filter stocks. I use R to do the analysis. The filtering is either through finding the gaps, which, by the way, you've got to take screenshots of gaps up and gap down every day, because after one day, all of these will disappear. There's no database on barcharts.com. Now, if you're not a gap trader, you can just ignore that. If you're not a gap trader, you're probably going to want to find your stocks through a filter system. And as far as I know, Simply Wall Street has the easiest and best filter system out there. It's $10 a month. It's not free, but it gives you a lot of options. So if you look at the left-hand side here, these are all your filter options. Now, every trader, every investor is going to have a different way of emphasizing what metrics are important to him. For me, I really care about the price to earnings versus the industry average. And I'm not going to be able to get that from here. But I will be able to get that from looking at an individual stock. So if you go into one of these, click on Apple, not only will it give you the intrinsic value, but it'll give you the price to earnings versus the market average. That doesn't look right. 23.6. The idea here is you should be able to hover your cursor over this gray bar. It doesn't work here. Hover it over the gray bar. So this is broken, so ignore it. But the gray bar represents the industry average. And what I want to do in many cases, especially before an earnings play, is compare the price to earnings of the individual stock to that of the market. And that tells me the potential of a rally versus a sell-off. So anyway, that PE that I emphasize is in here. I just have to click on the individual stock. By the way, if you go in to look at an individual stock, you've got pretty much every metric you could possibly want consolidated into one area, which is really great. You can also toggle some things. So I usually turn off revenue because I don't care, and I turn on cash flow. And then I compare it with my own models. So my own models have the cash flow projections, and inside Simply Wall Street you also have projections, but you have projections of the market consensus. So I compare my projections to that of the market consensus. If I see a significant difference, that gives me an idea for a trade. Down below you got a couple cool things down below. First is the distribution of the assets and liabilities. I've found this pretty difficult to find online without having to look up each one individually. Simply Wall Street consolidates it into one area. You drag your cursor above it, and it tells you specifically how much money is in each area. And this is also pretty good. This is debt to equity. What you got here is an actual comparison of the trends. Now, if you were just looking at debt to equity, it would seem okay. As a point estimate, it would seem okay. But because we have the graph, we see that debt is really closing in on equity in Apple, which has pretty much evened out since 2013. And if this continues, we're going to have a debt problem with Apple. Now here's one of the cooler parts. Down below, you're going to have the recent insider trading. Now I've noticed this doesn't show up for every stock in Simply Wall Street, and if it doesn't, all you have to do is go to NASDAQ and look for the same thing. But again, the benefit here is everything is consolidated on one page. So it'll show you the insider trading activity, and nobody inside Apple has bought recently. And if you drag your cursor over, it'll tell you how many people bought and how many shares and what was the value of that purchase or sale. So I like having everything on one page. It's really convenient for the back-end fundamental stuff. And then another cool thing is when you're in a page, if you click compare, you can bring up a similar stock. Who is Apple's competitor? Who is Apple's competitor? Android, I guess, but isn't Android owned by Google? And Google doesn't really make much of its money from operating systems. So let's compare. Let us compare. Let's compare a couple biotechs. Biogen versus Gilead. This is another cool part of this service. When you bring these two up, everything we just saw are side by side. And now we can find the differences. So if you are bullish on biotech and you've been looking at these two stocks, you don't know which one to do, you don't want to go half-half, well, compare them. This is an easy way to compare them for every metric we just saw. Now back to the point. The point is, if you sign up for this service, you click on this new filtered view, and you can filter by whatever you want. Now, I don't know anywhere else you could do this, and it's certainly not so easy. If there's a place that exists, it's certainly not as easy as this, because all you have to do is toggle a few things, and it'll bring up a list in whatever order by whatever other metric. So let's say we care about we want the comparison, the essential discount of the stock. So we're looking at where is the stock trading relative to the discounted cash flow valuation, and that's how we're ordering it. And now we have all of these stocks. The best ones in terms of discount are at the top, but we want to do more filtering because we've got right here 2,300 results. So we want to do some more filtering. Now let's say I care a lot about, I don't want anything with high debt ratios. So I'm going to toggle debt to equity ratio, and I want low debt to equity. All right. Then let's say we want insider buying more than selling. Looks like insider buying more than selling, if it's a ratio, it should be more than 100, but we don't have that option. So I'm not sure what they're doing here, but I'm guessing 100 is actually 50. So I'm guessing if we do this, we're gonna have more insider buying than selling. Let's check out whether that's true or not. So like we saw, we've got a huge discount here. It's trading at $2, but the discounted cash flow valuation puts it at $40. We put debt to equity as low, and I think we just skipped right by it. So there you go, no debt. And then we do have insider buying and no selling. So I think I was right in choosing that 50-degree mark. So you can play around with this. There's just a huge amount of combinations you can do with all these metrics to figure out what you want. You can even filter by industry. So if I'm going to play, for example, a seasonal play and I'm looking for a good biotech, I'm going to go to this instead of somewhere else. If I'm doing a technical trade, of course, I'm going to be looking at the gaps and other technical aspects, so I'm going to go to bar charts. So it really depends on where my starting point is. If my starting point is I want something fundamentally sound, I'm going to be using Simply Wall Street. Then one last cool thing about this site is that you can build a portfolio and it'll give you the same kind of analysis for your entire portfolio put together. So you saw those snowflakes for individual stocks. Well, you got one for your portfolio as well. It also breaks down your income sources, what's capital gains, what's dividends, tells you where the volatility comes from and where on the beta scale your whole portfolio is. So if you scroll over this, it'll tell you beta. So I've got a beta of 1.08. That means my portfolio moves more or less as volatile as the market. But the really cool thing is, now here we've got 23 different stocks. And the cool thing is, we want to see how it's diversified, right? Well, they've got this tree chart right here. Here's my entire portfolio. It's broken up into different industries. And then each industry is broken up into different sectors. And then each sector is broken up into different subsectors. So you really get a really detailed drill down of your entire portfolio. And this is a lot more useful than simply looking at a bunch of tickers and trying to memorize where their sources of revenue are, so that if something happens or if you're trying to rebalance your portfolio and you have Simply Wall Street, well, you can do it by sector. You know what I mean? So let's say for some reason I'm expecting another terrorist attack, like another 9/11. Well, this outline gives me a really good, it's really beneficial for quickly figuring out which stocks I want to drop and which I want to keep. So if there's another 9/11, I'm probably going to drop air-related transportation stocks. I'll probably drop Delta. There's a lot of shopping after 9/11, so I'm probably going to keep these retail stocks. And I notice a few of these are misplaced, but that could just be an issue of varying opinion. Priceline, for example, gets 97% of its revenue from hotel bookings. So I wouldn't consider this an internet and direct marketing retail. I'd put this in the hotel or travel industry. But for the most part, everything's pretty much correct. I've looked through this. I've tried different portfolios. It would be cool if there can be even more of a drill down, but I think that's actually asking a bit too much. Like I would like to see a drill down of biotech. Where are the differences between these three companies, for example? But for the most part, I don't think you can find this type of visual drill down anywhere else or with any other service. So if you're a person who has a large portfolio, or if you're a person who's an investor and not a trader, in other words, you're looking at your portfolio over time rather than simply playing trade by trade, I think Simply Wall Street has a lot of benefits for you if you want to. What I'm trying to say here is, let's say you don't want to spend every day delving into how your portfolio is doing and where things where the weak points are. All you have to do is once a week open this, see what you've added and see what you didn't add, and it'll give you a drill down as to where things have moved. It's just the whole idea here is that you've got a visual surrogate for hard data, and that makes things a lot faster for both checking things up and for analyses. And that's what I really like about this. The visual aspect is what keeps me hooked. It's what keeps me using it. If there wasn't this beautiful way of charting everything, I probably wouldn't even use this, because for the most part, the data, I just pull it in through my code. But that's me. I think most investors don't have a way to get a lot of this data, and it's really cool to be able to bring up not only like the discounted cash flow for your entire portfolio, but it's cool to be able to have those graphs. Where are we? Well, for an individual stock, because a lot of traders make the mistake of looking at point estimates when they should be looking at trends. If we see cash flow is rising, but it's currently not at good levels, well, it could be good for the stock. Too many people put estimates on the point value, and we see that here as well. But I can't really blame the site, because I don't think I've ever seen a trend of the intrinsic valuation. That's why I code it myself, so I can actually see that trend. But here again, we have a point estimate. there's an estimate of what my portfolio should be, but I would rather see the trend. Has it fallen? Has it grown? And about half of the metrics in here for an individual stock do have those charts. And you also got here. Let's see what I'm talking about with a drill down real quickly of a single stock. So we'll just go into Broadcom. What I mean by the trends is stuff like this. You can see where it's going in the future. That cash flow and profit, that's really important to me. I don't want to know what its cash flow is now. I want to know where the cash flow is going. And where do analysts think it's going? And if the analysts seem to be in a different way of thinking than I am, there might be an arbitrage opportunity right there. And another, I guess I'll leave on this note. I think this is especially good for new investors, because when you first start trading, there's so many metrics to look at. There's too much data. And if you don't want to do this full time and try to figure out what every metric means and what's important for your individual investing needs, this site is cool because it just gives you these tips right below. It tells you what it means. So I like to, for example, if the stock doesn't have positive earnings, if we got negative earnings like right here, we can't do that comparison of the individual price to earnings versus the market, the individual versus the sector price to earnings. So my backup is price to book, and that's this over here. It says price based on value of assets. That's the same as price to book. And it tells you down here if we've got a good one or a bad one. So if you don't know how to interpret these values, there's going to be a small interpretation down below, which is really great if you're starting out. So overall, if you're looking for something to filter your trades, if you are related to me somehow, either you read my articles on Seeking Alpha, or you watch my YouTube videos like you're doing now, I'm going to give you 3 recommendations for filtering stock. First is the gaps. If you're going to do gap trading, bar charts, the best place to find gaps, bar none, pun intended. The second is, well, simply sign up for damonvero.com. On the homepage, there's a follow my trades, copy my trade system. Sign up. There you go. You got a trade recommendation every day. That's a sort of filtering because I do it for you. And then the last one is this filtering down here in Simply Wall Street. That's the best if you want to figure out stuff on your own. Because I'm not an investor. I can give you good tips for trading or analysis. But in terms of long-term holdings, you want to be more fundamentally oriented. And this filtering software is probably the best one I've found out there. I haven't looked at a lot, to be honest. But compared with what's free out there, this is way above them. This is worth the $10 per month if you're going to be buying at least one stock per month, I would say. So there you go. There's my secret to filtering stocks. Bar charts, simplywall.st. That's pretty much it. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you want to sign up for Simply Wall Street, just go to simplywall.st. I think they have a free trial. If you want to sign up for my filtering system, where you get a trade recommendation every day, go to damonvero.com. It's significantly more expensive than Simply Wall Street, 9 times the price. But you do get trade recommendations. Really, overall though, I think the coolest part of this is that portfolio layout. I actually just found it today, which is why I made the video today, because I've been playing around with that tree chart of different styles. I just really like this. It'd be cool if they could tilt it on its side so it's horizontal as well. Anyway, I think I've said what I need to say. If this has been helpful to you, please tell me in the comments below. Also, I will do requests. In fact, I rely on your requests. If I don't get questions from you guys, I don't know what videos to make. So please, in the comment section below, let me know what kind of video you want. Let me know if you want a specific stock analyzed as well, and I can do that. I don't care about liking the video. You don't have to like it, but, leave a comment. Take care, guys.